Gear 5 Luffy is a menace in the guise of a scrawny boy. However, how would he compare against the man who's honored throughout heaven and earth? Will a fight against Luffy and Gojo result in hilarious humiliation for the entire verse of JJK? Or are the dedicated fans of One Piece in for a rude awakening? Let's find out. Now this is going to be an interesting bout as the power scaling for both these characters is off the charts. And I mean literally, as Luffy might even have the power to break the unfathomable fourth wall or Gojo's bones. So we'll consider this a no-holds-barred fight and give out strategies and methods one might use to counter the other. And for the people who are out there rage commenting, dude, cursed energy and haki are very different, how can you compare both? Chill guys, that's the purpose of this whole thing, a fun comparison. Anyway, Gojo and Luffy are both going to get down to it and kiss till dawn. Oh shoot, I mean, they're going to get down to it and fight it out till dawn. Dude, I really need to stop watching those yaoi series. In any case, being the cocky shonen protagonists they both are, the duo is going to build up to their fight in the OG anime fashion by starting out their weakest powers, with Luffy using his basic attacks like the Gomu Gomu pistol and Gojo dodging them pretty easily. However, Gojo would soon taunt Luffy to power up, as he knows that he's hiding something under his belt through his uncanny intuition, which would force Luffy to tap into Gear 2. Now, according to a foolproof thread mentioned by a random Reddit account of an unknown user about 10 years ago, Luffy is supposed to be somewhere around the double-digit Mach speed, so when he taps into his Gear 2, Gojo is going to get overwhelmed because he'd be a bit too fast for him to see. So this seems like a done case for our Kakashi ripoff. However, much to everyone's surprise, Gojo is going to laugh this one off and act the part of the damsel in distress until Luffy makes his move and dishes out his first hit, which would never reach the sorcerer due to his infinity technique. Luffy would be baffled as Gojo would manhandle him once he gets stuck in his infinity, and this is where the whole premise of the fight is going to change. So there's no power-up left in Luffy's arsenal to counter Gojo's infinity. So Luffy is going to jump directly to Gear 5 in order to bend reality on its head and take Gojo by surprise. As soon as Luffy transforms, he's going to start stretching all the way through Gojo's infinity without getting slowed down infinitely in the process, canceling out the technique and hitting the cocky sorcerer where it hurts. Now this is where we're going to make a humongous assumption and kind of equate cursed energy's damage output to haki's damage output. Especially the armament haki, because that is the most used offensive form of haki as opposed to the observational and conqueror's haki. Therefore, Luffy will have to hit Gojo in his Gear 5 state while coating his fist in haki, all the while overcoming his infinity, which will again assume to be automatic due to his reality-bending abilities. However, I have to remind you that Luffy is not subconsciously at his fastest during his Gear 5 crusades, as the young pirate keeps on adjusting the qualities and speeds of his abilities on the go during battle. So although he can now surpass Gojo's infinity by nullifying it with his schizophrenic devil fruit power, he'll still be pretty slow as opposed to his Gear 2 form, which will give Gojo enough time to think of a way out. Now coming on to Gojo's corner, our pretty boy is cornered with only 3 major techniques left in his arsenal: Curse Technique Lapse Blue, Curse Technique Reversal Red, and the Hollow Purple. Now, we're not assuming anything out of the domain expansion, as it is neither a projectile or basic energy, which could be compared to another one of the techniques of the One Piece world by equating haki and cursed energy, nor is it a very physical technique, which would be easier to compare. So we're going to go deep into this plot hole, but towards the end of the video. Moving on, Gojo would get hit multiple times by Luffy's attack. However, due to his enhanced strength and physical capabilities, he's going to soak up all the attacks with low diff and move on to fire off blue. And although Luffy isn't the most cognitive fighter in his Gear 5 state, he's not going to eat the lapse of Limitless like a blueberry and will most probably avoid it, causing him to be partially pulled in by it, and discovering that the attack works like a pseudo-black hole, stretching the fabric of space much like some of his own attacks. This is going to make the job of putting down Gojo a bit harder than initially expected, as Luffy would already be on his toes after getting hit with such an attack. Now this is where another twist might enter the story, and it would depend entirely on the mood of Gojo. If Gojo resorts to just playing around with Luffy, he's going to keep using Limitless Lapse Blue in order to toy with him a bit more before he, allegedly, finishes him off for good. However, if Gojo is able to perceive the underlying threat of Luffy's Gear 5, he's going to instantly jump into the curse technique reversal and use red. So let's just go on with the second assumption, as we all know that Gear 5 Luffy isn't going down so quickly and Gojo isn't immature either. Who's going to actively underestimate an opponent who overcame his limitless initially without even giving him a monologue on how he figured it out? That's a classic Bond villain mistake, and our new age protagonists aren't vibing with that approach anymore. But you know what mistake I'd want to avoid? Not subscribing to the channel. So do it, or I'll creep into your bed tonight. Anyways, Gojo is going to fire up red and launch it towards Luffy, which leads us to look for ways of revolving around how he is going to tackle a ball of hypothetical mass and energy that repels everything in its path. Now, Luffy isn't going to be able to touch red as it repels everything, and even if it didn't, it's practically a ball of cursed energy that may or may not turn to rubber upon Luffy touching it, which leaves us with the most boring answer. Luffy is going to once again rip a part of the land out and bounce the attack back on Gojo or anywhere else, and if we're taking both fighters to be equally matched at the moment of the fight, even launching the hollow purple would result in the same outcome and might cause extended damage to the surroundings. Which would leave us with Gojo depleting his cursed energy and trying pointless attacks at Luffy, which are going to be thrown at him or avoided by him by literally defying the laws of nature that even his attacks have to follow to a certain extent. If this fight were going to go in this direction for a little while longer, Luffy would come out as the winner with little to no extra effort, given that he doesn't turn into his old self due to exhaustion before Gojo's cursed energy runs out, and he isn't able to recover it as fast as he's using it. Now, this scenario has ruled out Luffy as the clear winner due to his reality-bending abilities, but we've got to come full circle and discuss the topic that we left behind in the video, which is domain expansion. Now, the concept of domain expansion is pretty simple. A sorcerer creates a barrier composed of cursed energy while also imbuing it with their innate curse technique. So, if Luffy were to get caught up in Gojo's domain expansion, there would be little to no survival techniques left in his arsenal to counter it. Firstly, when activated, these domains are fast enough that even in his Gear 5 form, Luffy won't be able to run away from its reaches. And if Sukuna was the one who was setting up his domain, running away won't even work with the Malevolent Shrine, as it is the only open domain expansion. Therefore, once inside, Luffy might try to stretch the space thin and crack open the domain. However, if Jujutsu Kaisen's rules are to be followed, that is a task that is impossible without the user having some kind of domain amplification of his own, or using a simple domain to tackle the opponent. But speaking of domains, we're forgetting one important fact that is unique to Gojo's domain. Once Luffy gets locked in, his brain will be flooded with sensory overload from all of his senses, which will render the young Yonko immobile. It would practically fry his brain like most beings who get caught in it. Not that Enel already did it in Skypiea, just saying. And although we're taking one extremely wild guess after another in this comparison, let us take another one for convenience, and let Luffy not be affected by the infinite stimuli his brain is receiving inside the unlimited void. If Gojo were to unleash any of his previous attacks, the guarantee that they would hit Luffy would increase by several folds, and he wouldn't be able to evade the attacks that he pretty easily thwarted in the open spaces. Therefore, to sum up the fight, Gojo would most probably win due to the difference between the complexities of the techniques between both worlds, and the only chance Luffy isn't losing inside the unlimited void would be when we have access to the limits of Gear 5. And if Gear 5 turns out to be as baffling as legends of Joe Boy say over the years, we're going to give this theory a revisit and settle the score. Until then, see ya!